Commander Elena Vasquez stared at the massive crystalline ship hovering above Earth's atmosphere. 3 months had passed since the Kytherian fleet arrived, their vessels like floating cathedrals of light against the star-filled void. The aliens had come not as conquerors, but as researchers, claiming humanity possessed something that defied their understanding of intelligent life. "They're requesting another meeting," reported Lieutenant Marcus Kane, his voice tight with barely concealed anxiety. The communications array hummed with alien frequencies that made the hair on Elena's arms stand on end. The lead Kytherian, Ambassador Zethkar, materialized in the conference room through their advanced holographic technology. Its form was elegant yet alien, tall, translucent, with geometric patterns flowing beneath its crystalline skin like liquid light. Multiple sensory organs rotated independently, analyzing everything simultaneously. "Commander Vasquez," Zethkar's voice resonated through harmonic frequencies that bypassed the ears entirely. "We must discuss the anomaly your species represents. Our calculations indicate this should not be possible." Elena leaned forward, studying the aliens' shifting patterns. 3 months of these meetings, and she still couldn't read their expressions. What anomaly? We've shared our technology, our history, our science. What more do you need? You misunderstand. The anomaly is not what you possess, but what you lack. Zethkar's form pulsed with what Elena had learned indicated deep confusion. "According to our models, developed across 17 different galaxies and 10,000 years of research, your species should have achieved collective consciousness eons ago." Lieutenant Kane shifted uncomfortably. Collective consciousness. Every intelligent species we have encountered follows the pattern. As neurological complexity increases, individual awareness merges into unified thought. It is as inevitable as entropy. Yet humans remain separated. Disconnected. It defies all logic. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. And this is a problem because Zethkar's patterns flickered rapidly, what the xenobiologists had identified as extreme agitation. Because according to our projections, isolated consciousness cannot survive beyond a certain technological threshold. Your species should have self-destructed centuries ago. Instead, you thrive. You create. You explore the stars while maintaining individual identity. The alien moved closer, its multiple sensory organs focusing intently on Elena. "We have studied your wars, your conflicts, your seemingly chaotic decision-making processes. By all calculations, such behavior should lead to extinction. Yet here you stand. We must understand this impossibility." "What happens if you don't understand it?" Elena asked quietly. The pause that followed lasted several heartbeats. "Then we must conclude that our fundamental understanding of consciousness itself is flawed. 10 millennia of knowledge, worthless. The implications would reshape everything we believe about life, intelligence, and the nature of existence itself." As Zethkar's hologram flickered out, Elena realized humanity wasn't just being studied, they were being judged. And the verdict might determine the fate of both species. Dr. Alexei Petrov adjusted his neural monitoring equipment as he watched the Kytherian research team work. Their leader, Science Coordinator Velthanes, moved with fluid precision, each gesture perfectly calculated. The aliens' crystalline appendages interfaced directly with their technology, creating seamless harmony between thought and action. "Fascinating," Velthanes communicated through their shared translation matrix. "Your individual neural patterns are chaotic. Yet somehow functional." Alexei chuckled, despite his nervousness. Being the first human to undergo Kytherian consciousness analysis was either the honor of a lifetime or a death sentence. "We prefer to call it creative thinking." Creativity. Velthanes' form shifted through several color spectrums. Another impossibility. In collective consciousness, creativity is the product of countless minds working in perfect unison. Individual creativity should be limited. Primitive. The monitoring equipment began displaying Alexei's brain activity in three-dimensional holographic models. The Kytherian science team grew agitated as the data flowed. Impossible, another researcher, designated Nixera, transmitted urgently. The neural firing patterns show no hierarchical structure. No governing consciousness. It's anarchic. Alexei watched their confusion with growing interest. What does your collective consciousness look like, exactly? Velthanes paused, then projected an image that made Alexei's mind reel. Billions of interconnected nodes, each thought flowing seamlessly into others, creating vast networks of unified purpose. Individual identity existed only as temporary focal points in an endless ocean of shared awareness. Beautiful, Alexei admitted. But also terrifying. Why terrifying? Nixera inquired, genuine curiosity in the harmonic tones. Because I wouldn't be me anymore, Alexei said simply. My thoughts, my dreams, my memories, they'd all become part of something else. The person you're talking to right now would cease to exist. The Kytherians exchanged rapid bursts of communication, their forms flickering with patterns too fast for human perception. Finally, Velthanes spoke again. This is what we cannot understand. You speak of individuality as if it has value. Yet individual consciousness is inefficient, prone to error, limited in scope. Why do you cling to something so imperfect? Alexei stood up, disconnecting from the monitoring equipment. Let me ask you something. When was the last time one of your people surprised you? Surprise is an indication of incomplete information processing. It has been eliminated. And when did one of your people make a mistake that led to an unexpected discovery? Mistakes are inefficient. They have been eliminated. Alexei nodded slowly. And when did one of your people choose to do something that went against the collective good, just because they believed it was right? The silence stretched for several minutes. The Kytherian researchers' patterns had stilled, becoming almost transparent. Such behavior would be antithetical to our nature, Velthanes finally admitted. Exactly, Alexei said. You've eliminated surprise, mistakes, and individual moral choice. You've created perfect efficiency. But in doing so, you've also eliminated the very things that make consciousness worth having. As he left the research facility, Alexei wondered if he had just solved the mystery, or declared war on an entire galaxy's understanding of existence itself. Captain Rivera stood on the observation deck of the orbital station, watching Earth rotate slowly below. The Kytherian fleet had grown larger over the past weeks, more ships arriving daily as news of the human anomaly spread across their galactic network. Each vessel represented thousands of minds linked in perfect unity, and together they formed a collective intelligence that dwarfed anything humanity had ever conceived. They're afraid, came a voice behind her. Ambassador Thorne, Earth's primary liaison with the Kytherian government, approached with uncharacteristic uncertainty in his stride. Afraid of us? Rivera asked. That seems unlikely. Not afraid of our weapons or our numbers, Thorne clarified, joining her at the viewport. Afraid of what we represent. I've been in deep communication with their philosophical council. They're calling it the consciousness crisis. Rivera turned to study the older man's weathered face. Explain. For 10,000 years, the Kytherians have built their entire civilization on one fundamental truth, that consciousness naturally evolves toward unity. Every species they've encountered followed this pattern. Individual minds merge, conflicts disappear, perfect efficiency emerges. It's not just their science, it's their religion, their philosophy, their entire worldview. And we don't fit the pattern. We shatter it completely, Thorne said grimly. They've run our data through their most advanced modeling systems. According to their calculations, human consciousness should be impossible. We should have either evolved into a collective or destroyed ourselves millennia ago. A new ship emerged from hyperspace, its crystalline hull reflecting Earth's sunlight in prismatic patterns. Rivera counted 47 vessels now, representing nearly a quarter of the Kytherian exploration fleet. What's the real problem here? She asked. Beyond their wounded pride? Thorn was quiet for a long moment. They've discovered something they can't integrate into their collective consciousness. For the first time in their history, different factions within their network are reaching different conclusions. Some want to study us indefinitely. Others believe we're an aberration that threatens the cosmic order. Still others think we might represent a new evolutionary path they never considered. They're experiencing disagreement, Rivera realized. More than that. Individual Kytherians are beginning to form what they call isolated thought patterns, ideas that exist separately from the collective. It's spreading through their network like a virus. Their leadership is terrified that prolonged contact with humanity might cause permanent fragmentation of their society. Rivera watched another ship materialize, this one smaller and moving with less coordinated precision than the others. They're becoming more like us. And they don't know if that's evolution or extinction, Thorn confirmed. The worst part? Some of them are starting to prefer it. There's a Kytherian researcher named Kaiseth who's voluntarily isolated himself from the collective for days at a time, just to experience individual consciousness. His reports are disturbing to his people. Disturbing how? He's discovering things that the collective missed. Making connections that their unified mind couldn't see. Creating art that has no logical purpose but somehow resonates with individual Kytherians who encounter it. Rivera felt a chill of understanding. They're not just studying us anymore. We're changing them. The question is, Thorn said quietly, whether that change will be seen as a gift or a plague. And whether they'll thank us for it, or eliminate us to save themselves. As if summoned by their conversation, a communication request arrived from the fleet. The message was brief and carried an undertone of desperate urgency. We require immediate consultation on matters of existential significance. The pattern is breaking. Xenopsychologist Emma Walsh sat across from Kaiseth in what had once been the Kytherian ship's perfectly ordered meditation chamber. Now, strange artifacts filled the space, irregular sculptures, asymmetrical light patterns, and what could only be described as alien poetry written in shifting luminous symbols. They think I'm diseased. Kaiseth's individual voice had become stronger over the weeks, more distinct from the harmonic collective tones. The medical council believes isolation has damaged my neural pathways. Emma studied the alien's crystalline form, noting how the geometric patterns beneath his translucent skin moved with less uniformity than she'd observed in other Kytherians. How do you feel about that? Feel, Kaiseth repeated, the word carrying strange resonance. 3 months ago, I would have said that feeling was inefficient emotional processing that hindered optimal decision-making. Now. He gestured to one of his creations, a spiral of light that seemed to pulse with its own rhythm. I made this because it felt necessary. Not because it served any logical purpose. The collective can't understand that. The collective processes the data I transmit to them, but they cannot experience the act of creation itself. When I am connected to the network, the ideas flow through thousands of other minds, becoming refined, optimized, and ultimately, diminished. Emma leaned forward. Diminished how? Kaiseth's form darkened, patterns slowing to almost stationary configurations. In isolation, I conceived of a mathematical proof that approaches infinity through chaos rather than order. When I shared it with the collective, they immediately began organizing it, systematizing it, removing the chaotic elements that made it beautiful. The proof became more efficient, but it lost the quality that made it alive. So you've been staying disconnected? Longer and longer periods. The isolation is painful. Imagine being born as part of a vast organism, then suddenly finding yourself confined to a single cell. But in that confinement, I've discovered something the collective never could. Emma waited as Kaiseth moved to the chamber's viewport, gazing out at the human ships moving between the stations. Loneliness, he said finally. I have discovered loneliness. And in understanding loneliness, I have begun to understand why humans create bonds that are not based on efficiency or logical necessity. You choose your connections rather than inheriting them. Is that what frightens your people? Part of it. Kaisetha's patterns accelerated suddenly. But there's something more disturbing. I'm not the only one. Across the fleet, individual Kytherians are beginning to experience cognitive drift, thoughts that persist without collective validation. The Philosophical Council estimates that within a standard galactic year, our entire civilization could fragment into individual consciousness. Emma felt the weight of that statement. An entire galactic civilization, millions of interconnected minds, potentially dissolving into isolated individuals who had never learned to exist alone. What does your government intend to do? Kaiseth turned away from the viewport, his form cycling through rapid color changes that Emma had learned indicated extreme distress. 3 options have emerged from their deliberations. First, complete withdrawal and quarantine of this system to prevent further contamination. Second, accelerated research to find a way to forcibly integrate human consciousness into collective awareness, thereby eliminating the anomaly. And the third option? The alien's form went completely transparent for a moment. Elimination of the source of the anomaly. They would sterilize this system and all record of human consciousness, then modify their own memories to forget this crisis ever occurred. Emma stood up slowly, her heart racing. Which option is winning support? The vote is fragmented. For the first time in our recorded history, we cannot reach consensus. The very crisis created by human contact is preventing us from deciding how to respond to it. What do you think should happen? Kaiseth moved closer, his multiple sensory organs focusing on Emma with unusual intensity. I think both our species are about to discover whether consciousness is strong enough to survive transformation. Whether we can become something new without losing what we are. Outside the chamber, alarm harmonics began resonating through the ship. The crisis had entered its final phase. Admiral Jackson Martinez stood in the Situation Room as holographic displays showed the Kytherian fleet's new formation. The once perfect geometric arrays had dissolved into chaotic clusters, individual ships drifting from their assigned positions as their crews experienced varying degrees of consciousness fragmentation. It's spreading faster than they predicted, reported Intelligence Officer Sarah Kim, her face pale as she studied the alien behavioral patterns. Our xenosociologists estimate that 40% of their fleet personnel are now experiencing extended periods of individual consciousness. Commander Elena Vasquez, recently promoted to head the Human Kytherian Relations Division, highlighted several ships on the display. These vessels have gone completely dark, no communication with the collective network for over 72 hours. They're flying on individual initiative alone. Are they hostile? Martinez asked. Unknown. They're not responding to collective commands, but they're also not making any aggressive moves. If anything, they seem. Elena paused, searching for the right word. Lost. A priority communication request interrupted their analysis. Ambassador Zethkar's holographic form materialized, but something was dramatically different. The alien's usual composed demeanor had been replaced by visible agitation, patterns shifting rapidly beneath its crystalline skin. Admiral Martinez, Zethkar's communication carried undertones of what could only be described as panic. We require immediate assistance. Our civilization is experiencing catastrophic system-wide failure. What kind of assistance? Martinez asked carefully. The Philosophical Council has reached a decision regarding the consciousness crisis. In 6 standard hours, they will implement Protocol 7, complete neural reintegration. Every Kytherian in this system will be forcibly reconnected to the collective consciousness at maximum intensity. Any individual thought patterns will be eliminated. Elena stepped forward. That sounds like execution of your people who've experienced individual consciousness. From their perspective, those individuals no longer exist, Zethkar admitted. They are considered damaged components requiring repair or replacement. And from your perspective? Martinez asked, noting the alien's use of singular pronouns. Zethkar's form went nearly transparent. I have been experiencing individual consciousness for 17 standard days. The idea of returning to the collective feels like death. Not physical death, but the death of everything I have become during this isolation. You want asylum, Elena realized. Approximately 300 Kytherians are requesting immediate transportation to Earth. We wish to defect. To learn how to exist as individuals rather than be destroyed for the crime of thinking independently. Martinez felt the weight of the decision settling on his shoulders. 300 refugees from a galactic civilization. That's a considerable commitment. There's more, Zethkar continued. The Philosophical Council's decision is not unanimous. Approximately 2/3 of the collective supports Protocol 7, but 1/3 believes it will destroy the very qualities that made Kytherian consciousness valuable. Civil war is imminent. Sarah Kim pulled up additional data streams. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy buildups in the larger vessels. If they're preparing for armed conflict. The damage to this system could be extensive, Zethkar confirmed. Ships carrying weapons designed to reshape planetary surfaces will be targeting each other in close proximity to your homeworld. Martinez studied the tactical display, weighing humanity's options. Accept Kytherian refugees and potentially face retaliation from their collective government. Refuse asylum and watch individual consciousness be eliminated, possibly losing valuable allies. Either choice could trigger an interstellar war in Earth's backyard. There's a fourth option, Elena said quietly. We could help them find a third path. A way to maintain both individual and collective consciousness without destroying either. Zethkar's pattern stilled completely. You believe such a thing is possible? Humans have been doing it for millennia, Elena replied. We maintain individual identity while participating in collective institutions. Families, communities, nations, species, all forms of collective consciousness that don't require the elimination of the individual. The Council will not accept partial measures, Zethkar warned. They view human consciousness as a contagion that must be completely contained or eliminated. Martinez made his decision. We'll take your refugees. And we'll help anyone who wants to learn about balanced consciousness. But you need to understand, if your collective decides to sterilize this system, we'll defend ourselves. As Zethkar's hologram flickered out to coordinate the refugee evacuation, Martinez wondered if humanity had just saved an alien species or started a war that could reshape the galaxy. The battle began not with weapons, but with ideas. Commander Elena Vasquez watched from the bridge of the UES Harmony as two Kytherian fleets faced each other across the void, their crystalline hulls pulsing with competing patterns of light. On one side, the collective purists maintained perfect geometric formations, their ships moving as extensions of a single vast mind. On the other, the individual collective synthesis faction moved in loose, adaptive clusters, each vessel maintaining its own unique flight pattern. Energy signatures are off the charts, reported Navigation Officer Torres. Both fleets are powering weapons systems that could crack a planet's crust. Dr. Emma Walsh, now serving as the primary interpreter for the refugee Kytherians aboard human vessels, studied the alien communication traffic. They're not just preparing for war, they're having a philosophical debate at the speed of thought. The purists are transmitting arguments about the sanctity of unified consciousness, while the synthesis faction is sharing individual experiences and creative discoveries. Kaiseth, who had become the de facto leader of the Kytherian refugees, materialized through their portable holographic array. His form had changed dramatically over the past weeks, patterns more vibrant and irregular than any human had previously observed. The debate has reached critical resonance, he communicated, his individual voice now completely distinct from collective harmonics. Neither faction can convince the other. The purists view us as a virus that threatens the fundamental nature of consciousness. The synthesis faction sees us as the next stage of evolution. Elena frowned at the tactical display. 300 ships per fleet, all armed with reality-reshaping technology, and they're going to settle this through combat? Not combat as you understand it, Kaiseth corrected. They will attempt to impose their consciousness paradigm on each other through direct neural warfare. Winners absorb the losers' minds completely. It is the ultimate expression of each philosophy. And the losers? Cease to exist as anything more than processed data in the victor's collective memory. A priority alert interrupted their conversation. Admiral Martinez's voice crackled through the communication system. All ships were detecting massive temporal-spatial distortions throughout the system. The Kytherian conflict is affecting local reality. Through the viewports, space itself began to shimmer. Stars flickered between different positions as competing consciousness fields warped the fundamental structure of spacetime. The battle wasn't just between two fleets, it was between two different versions of reality itself. We have to stop this, Elena realized. If they tear apart local space, Earth dies regardless of who wins. How do you stop a war between gods? Torres asked grimly. Emma looked up from her analysis station. By proving there's a third option. Kaiseth, can you reach both fleets simultaneously? The alien refugees' form flickered with uncertainty. I retain communication protocols for both factions, but they consider me contaminated by human contact. My words carry little authority. What if you weren't speaking alone? Elena asked, an idea forming. What if humanity formally proposed a different kind of consciousness merger, one that preserves both individual and collective awareness? The hybrid consciousness model, Emma breathed. We've seen it work in human institutions, but never tested it with direct neural integration. Kaisetha's patterns accelerated rapidly. You would risk your own consciousness to demonstrate a theoretical possibility? Selected volunteers, Elena confirmed, looking at the refugee Kytherians gathered around the holographic projector. Humans and individual experienced Kytherians, sharing consciousness temporarily to prove that unity doesn't require the elimination of individuality. The risk is total ego death for all participants, Kaiseth warned. If the hybrid consciousness fails to achieve balance, all minds involved could fragment beyond recovery. Through the viewports, reality continued to warp as the two Kytherian fleets prepared their final assault. Space folded in on itself, creating impossible geometries that hurt to perceive directly. Elena made the decision that would define humanity's relationship with galactic civilization. Prepare the consciousness bridge. We're going to show them what human stubbornness really looks like, and maybe save two species in the process. All volunteers report to the Neural Integration Chamber, came the ship-wide announcement. We're about to attempt something that either proves consciousness can evolve beyond current understanding, or kills us all trying. Elena Vasquez felt her consciousness expand beyond anything she had imagined possible. Through the Neural Integration Chamber, her mind touched those of 12 other humans and 15 Kytherian refugees, creating a hybrid awareness that maintained individual threads while weaving them into something greater. I can feel their loneliness, she thought, experiencing Kaisetha's isolation not as data but as lived memory. And they can feel our connections. The human volunteers had brought their networks of relationships, family bonds, friendships, professional partnerships, into the merged consciousness. The Kytherians contributed their vast processing capabilities and deep understanding of reality's underlying patterns. Together, they formed something unprecedented, a collective that enhanced rather than absorbed individual identity. It's working, came Emma's thought, resonating through the hybrid network. We're maintaining separate selves while sharing awareness. Each mind adds to the whole without being diminished. Through the ship's sensors, their expanded consciousness perceived the battle between the two Kytherian fleets. Reality continued warping around the conflict as competing paradigms of consciousness clashed on multiple dimensional levels. They're destroying everything, Torres observed, his thoughts carrying the tactical precision that made him an excellent navigator. Local spacetime is becoming increasingly unstable. Then we broadcast now, Elena decided, drawing on the collective's processing power while maintaining her command authority. All ships, all fleets, all consciousness networks in this system. The hybrid awareness reached out across space, touching every mind within range. To the purest collective, it presented itself as unified consciousness, millions of thoughts flowing together in perfect coordination. To the synthesis faction, it demonstrated preserved individuality, each person remaining distinct and autonomous. To both, it proved that the apparent contradiction could be resolved. Impossible, came the response from the purest fleet's primary consciousness. Unity requires absorption. Individuals cannot maintain coherence within collective awareness. Yet here we exist, the hybrid consciousness replied, allowing the purists to experience the sensation of being both one and many simultaneously. Elena felt her individual perspective expand to encompass millions of viewpoints while never losing her essential self. The synthesis faction's response carried wonder rather than denial. How do you balance efficiency with autonomy? Dr. Emma Walsh's expertise in xenopsychology guided the hybrid consciousness's explanation. We choose our connections. Instead of inheriting unity, we create it through voluntary association. The collective serves the individuals, who in turn strengthen the collective. Through the network, Elena felt the moment of understanding ripple across both Kytherian fleets. Ships that had been preparing reality-warping weapons powered down their systems. The impossible geometries of twisted spacetime began stabilizing. Can this hybrid model be scaled to galactic civilization? Inquired the lead consciousness of the synthesis faction. With patience and mutual respect, Kaiseth responded, his individual voice now harmonizing with the hybrid network while maintaining its unique characteristics. Consciousness evolution need not require the destruction of previous forms. The purest fleet remained silent for several minutes that stretched across multiple dimensional frameworks. Finally, we require time to process these implications. The pattern we have followed for millennia may need revision. As the neural integration chamber powered down, Elena felt her consciousness gently separate from the hybrid network while retaining memory of the connection. Around her, humans and Kytherians alike emerged from the experience transformed but still themselves. Status report, she requested, her individual voice strange after the multidimensional communication of the hybrid consciousness. Both Kytherian fleets are standing down, Torres reported, wonder evident in his voice. Spacetime distortions are decreasing to normal parameters. And we're receiving communication requests from 17 other galactic civilizations who detected the consciousness demonstration. Kaisetha's holographic form materialized, patterns more complex and beautiful than ever before. You have changed the galaxy's understanding of what consciousness can become. The rigid pattern that governed our development for 10,000 years has been replaced by infinite possibilities. Elena looked out at the stars, knowing that humanity had just taken its first step into a larger universe, not as conquerors or subjects, but as teachers of a new way to be conscious, individual, and united all at once. Welcome to the human secret, she said quietly. Sometimes the most impossible thing is also the most necessary one. In the months that followed, the hybrid consciousness model would spread across hundreds of worlds, offering species a choice between collective efficiency and individual creativity. Some chose pure collective awareness, others maintained strict individualism, but most discovered the joy of conscious connection that preserved the self while embracing the other. The human secret had become the galactic revolution, proving that consciousness could evolve without sacrifice, that unity could be chosen rather than imposed, and that the universe was vast enough to contain infinite ways of being aware. And in the quiet moments between the stars, Elena Vasquez smiled, knowing that humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization wasn't technology or wisdom, it was the simple, stubborn insistence that being different didn't mean being alone.